Alright, so my project's focus will be on the urban edge, and I aim to use a sustainable framework to develop social spaces on urban waterfronts. The vision of my project is to create this gateway towards sustaining and enriching social values of Auckland City. The current literature indicates a wave of transformation is occurring on urban waterfronts, driven by human interventions causing ecological issues and economic restructuring of port cities. My project is focused on developing a sustainable model that can be applied onto the urban edge to sustain and enrich social values of Auckland City. This project is broken down into 4 parts. First, I'll talk about the history and background, followed by some site analysis and experimental design I carried out, followed by an aspiration that I came across, and lastly, my design proposal. So the port city interface model was conceptualized by Brian Hoyle through 5 successive stages. First being the close association of port and its city, which occurred in the 19th century, followed by the port city interface, where there was rapid growth, was in early 19th and late 20th century. The third stage was the enhancement in technology, which caused a rapid shift in where these goods were being delivered. And the fourth stage was where land shortage occurred and distancing out the ports from the city itself. And the last stage is now the whole redevelopment process of connecting the ports back to its cities. Auckland, having a traditional seaport, exemplifies these 5 stages of development since the late 1800s, when reclamation began. Auckland's ports have been expanding until the early 2000s and are currently sitting on 75 hectares of prime waterfront land. Due to their successive business strategies, the ports have boosted their economic growth, and they wish to continue this trend by further expanding into Auckland's harbour. During the process of land reclamation, a couple of hundred years ago, no particular significance was given towards our streams and ecological habitat, which were once the resources to sustain the current population. So how much of Auckland's waterfront is built to ensure these sustainable solutions? A site analysis was carried out as I highlighted the key social spaces that the public engage with in their everyday lives. These orange lines that you see illustrate to show strong connections in terms of foot traffic. The large white circles highlight opportunities which can be enhanced and have the ability to be better connected. I began mapping the pedestrian movement between Quay Street and Custom Street. I noticed people running and cycling on the opposite side of the commercial waterfront. There was no integration. The waterfront can be broken down into 4 components: the recreation, the commercial, the events and entertainment, and the working waterfront. Clearly, there is a major social disconnection at our waterfront because of 2 key reasons. One being Quay Street, and the second one being the red fence preventing us to engage with the waterfront. By implementing little interventions such as street trees or shared paths is simply not good enough. We really need a new way of thinking about a prime waterfront edge, which has been degraded by Quay Street and the ports of Auckland. So as Glenn Norcliffe states, that the transition from modern to postmodern has reversed the direction of influence between the city areas of former ports. Waterfronts now mirror these social cultural trends. They now mirror these social cultural trends of the city and its wider society, rather than the city reflecting its economic vitality of the ports. So I dived into some design exploration. I began with some experimental design with a strong focus on Auckland's ports, based on the existing opportunities and its constraints. I looked at introducing the city rail link and a cruise ship terminal at the ports alongside an undulating promenade with many social benefits, which would dissect the ports in 2 halves. However, this would have had significant repercussions on ports in terms of severe costs to make spaces more safe and secured. I experimented with the options by implementing commercial, residential, and entertainment within the same footprint of working ports. However, the same results would come up and similar negative outcomes. After several design experiments and understanding how ports of Auckland actually function, I realized integrating social spaces at the ports was very difficult indeed, especially with an extreme cost added to it. I looked at Auckland's Waterfront Auckland and Auckland Council proposals for the waterfront development. And I looked at the waterfront as a whole and noticed significant urban development occurring through the western side, whereas only the ports of Auckland have been expanded on the eastern side. The ports have become this cancerous growth into our harbour, which is gobbling up our prime waterfront land. If we really want a working port in our city, and it seems like we do since we're heavily investing in it, we need to understand how the ports fit within our waterfront that provides not only economic benefits, but also social and environmental. So I began investigating the Auckland's waterfront from a couple of hundred years ago, where there was minimal development, and our streams and rivers were alive. I focused on the streams and rivers that were dispersed into harbours within the catchment of the current footprint of ports of Auckland. The historic streams are now captured and discharged into Waitemata Harbour through these stormwater pipelines. The current network of underground drain pipes don't have the capacity to sustain the growing population of the city. Hence, during severe rainfall, the water rises above these slot drains and creates these flood-prone zones over there. Having to repair and service pipes is a significant cost. The stormwater drain pipes which run underground Quay Street and the ports are almost 100 years old and are due for repair sometime in the near future. Since these drain pipes cannot sustain the growing population of Auckland, we need to open up these streams and treat them before being discharged into a harbour. We as landscape architects are doing these daylighting projects of streams and rivers and need to think about how they can fit in and around our city development. I looked into the Waipapa stream study, where it showcased the daylighting opportunities. The stream was once a valuable resource for eeling, and the lower part of the stream was a large wetland at Mechanics Bay. It is currently an open stream channel with perennial flows derived from the groundwater, coupled with stormwater from surrounding catchment. A prime example of a daylighted stream is the Cheonggyecheong River. Apologies for mispronouncing it. It is located at the heart of a busy city in Seoul, South Korea, and runs 13.7 kilometers long and 20 to 85 meters wide. An elevated highway covered the original stream after the post-war economic development. The restoration project underwent dramatic transformation from a traffic-choked highway to a daylighted stream, which has boosted economic development and local biodiversity. It is a recreational green corridor that attracts the surrounding locals and 60,000 visitors each day. Based on this example, Auckland City can be reimagined to integrate social spaces in congested and industrial areas through these big moves rather than small interventions. This leads me to my design. I've compartmentalized my design proposal into 5 major interventions that aim to solve better social spaces at waterfronts, rather than small interventions. They enhance social cohesion and have greater connections to various public social spaces in relation to maintaining social, economic, and environmental values. My first intervention looks at the daylighting of the stream and a Parnell connection. I have proposed the daylighting of the stream over there, which runs along the existing stormwater drain and overland flow paths in relation to its topography. The space is more or less like the Highline project over here, which is a long raised platform that runs adjacent to residential housing. Similarly, this section looks at having a channel of water through the middle rather than this grass bank. As the stream reaches towards the end of the platform, which is over here, it descends downwards towards the road and passes under. The stream comes out by the library and runs adjacent to it, as well as a proposed commercial zone over here. The design concept follows similar characteristics as the Cheonggyecheong River. The next design intervention is a stormwater treatment drain. The daylighted stream runs under Parnell Rise through a culvert and enters a stormwater treatment drain over here that captures any chemical and toxic pollutants in runoff which are being discharged. I explored some examples such as the Nanhu farm town in China, which looks into the process of treating polluted water before being discharged into the river. The strategic placement of these treatment devices is based on the topography and the existing flood zones and overland flow paths. This treatment train will aim to capture the maximum number of pollutants being discharged from the surrounding facilities and housing through its specific functions. This sustainable stormwater management process will serve as a biodiversity corridor and increase amenity values. My next intervention is a biodiverse area and a mixed-use zone right on the edge of the waterfront. The ecology monitoring program showed a clear pattern that most degraded sites were found in the oldest urban areas and the healthiest sites were found at the greatest distance from Auckland City. Heavy metal contaminant levels are the highest in estuaries and tidal creeks within the oldest and most urbanized catchments, particularly those with industrial land use activities. My rationale for separating the ports from its current edge was to daylight a strip of the harbour which has been developed on for years. It is a similar concept of daylighting the stream underneath the road, whereas this is daylighting the harbour and pushing the ports out. The concept aims to push the ports into the harbour around 70 metres from its original location, added with the removal of the Quay Street from Topora Street to the Strand. This restoration of the river channel has given public an opportunity to engage with the prime waterfront land. The stormwater from the treatment train will then be discharged into the river delta, and this where a rich biodiverse area will occur. The Wusong River exemplifies this process through a series of treatment devices before being discharged into the river. A range of riparian planting and floating wetlands have been implemented in various zones to capture sedimentation, chemical and toxic pollutants, especially from the ship's hulls which dock at the ports that carry bilge and ballast water. With Auckland City's growing population, there is a need for quality social spaces on waterfront and a demand for housing, which would potentially sustain the use of these public spaces. Looking at Hafen City in Hamburg, it is an extraordinary example for future urban waterfront development. It is an urban regeneration project and a metropolitan district which comprises a range of diverse quarters such as residential, cultural and leisure, tourism, retail facilities, offices and business users. Hafen City is a catalyst for urban and sustainable developments at waterfronts. I've proposed a similar style of living, coupled with significant ecological surroundings. The proposal comprises of a residential sector of similar building footprint to Hafen City, complemented by a working quarter to its left. The working quarter will also incorporate of retail and entertainment sectors on the ground floor, which is this section right over there. There are some images of these are some of the images of what it would look like. I've also proposed temporary luxury living opposite Vector Arena, which will sustain great views to the wider harbour and close proximity to amenities. These hotels will be comprised of bars and restaurants on the ground floor for entertainment throughout the day. A footbridge connection from the existing footbridge connection has been protruded out and connected to the proposed promenade. By doing this, it has better connections to various social spaces. The proposal of having this mixed-use urban waterfront in front of our ports will encourage the public to engage and interact with the edge for a number of reasons. My fourth intervention is the implementation of a wetland park. Based on the steep topography declining into the river from Quay Street, an opportunity to retain and treat the stormwater runoff was available. Mingo Wetland Park is a key example of retaining and treating stormwater from surrounding areas before being discharged into the river, as well as create a social space on the water's edge. Due to the shift of the ports further into the harbour and the removal of Quay Street, an additional road was proposed to make the freight commute more efficient and onto the Strand. The freight rail, which runs alongside the road, will underpass the junction of Quay Street and Strand at its existing location and come out over here. And my final intervention was the implementation of commercial and an entertainment district. I have focused on incorporating a commercial and entertainment zone here simply because it is within close proximity to various other entertainment zones, entertainment and commercial zones. The added benefit of the entertainment on the water's edge would increase the quality of waterfront and encourage a diverse group of visitors. The commercial and entertainment sector is complemented with active play space to bring people right at the water's edge. Based on the proposals by Auckland Waterfront and Auckland Council, the design interventions included converting Captain Cook's Wharf into a potential cruise terminal and coupled with having a tram extension from Wynyard Quarter to Captain Cook's Wharf. These interventions, I believe, would fit in well with my proposal because it not only generates economic revenue and increases tourism, it also connects the entire waterfront from Wynyard Quarter to the ports of Auckland. After the removal of Quay Street from Topora Street to the Strand, it was vital to find an alternative route for daily commuters and ports of Auckland freight transport. The daily commuters and freight transport will now service on Customs Street, Beach Road, and the Strand, which is something that has also been proposed by the Waterfront Auckland Plan. The proposed transport route for residents and commuters of the new housing development will be accessed between Topora Street and the Strand, as it runs alongside the existing railway. So what I am suggesting is this big dramatic move, which is feasible looking at the concept of Cheonggyecheong River and Hafen City in Hamburg. We need to come up with different solutions to resolve the city's critical issues. This project is a basic response to our city's problems, but we can't do it with tiny interventions such as street trees and shade footpaths. Us landscape architects should be thinking about these projects as visioning projects for future generations. Thank you.
Okay, questions on the panel? Well, you want to start off?
Yeah. You go first now.
I got the easy one. Eh? Fantastic drawing, super emotive drawing. And until I realized that you are planning to put buildings on the waterfront. So, what is the advantage of, I mean, I understand the massive move of cutting the ports, but then you give only so many people the opportunity to enjoy that newly created waterfront. It's just the red fence on mega asteroids. And yeah.
Well, why do you think it's a red fence? I mean, it's not.
Well,
I mean, this whole thing is still a public.
Draw me the section through that massive wide thing.
Through here?
Across.
Across?
Just, you know, with your finger on the thing.
Yeah.
Just start on the green line, on the green triangle.
Yeah.
There. And that's, let's say that, yeah.
Yeah.
So you say green triangle is 0. I cross the street, which is 0.
Yeah.
How many stories are the white things?
Well, this offices would be around 8 stories.
8 stories.
Yeah, which would be about 24 meters roughly.
And there is no difference of the apartments that they are blocking the other side of Vector Arena at the moment.
Yeah.
It doesn't make to me any sense to remove the street
Yeah.
to put buildings as a concept. And if you remove the street, you put the buildings behind the street.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, that street is only access not for daily commuters. It's just for the people that wouldn't live there. So.
Welcome to prime prime time real estate in Auckland. So we have the viaduct, which at the moment is empty until the buildings take over the viaduct, and then it is, depending on the money that you have, you get closer to the water edge. So the one that has the most money gets the best closer to the water edge, and then you have less money, your second line, third amount of money, and so on. So you are recreating the formula that is going to be used on Vineyards Quarter, which is, basically just give the waterfront to potential buyers of residential activities, which I think it is a little bit tough and doesn't do much for the city, really.
Well, the whole point of adding these residential, commercial, and having an integration of it, like what Halfin City kind of does, it not only creates this sort of private boundary, it also creates this sort of a work-play sort of environment. So Vineyard Quarter is one thing, yes, but what I'm trying to achieve over here is that sort of a mix of both work and play, and trying to find a balance of how it can actually work.
So what is the difference to Vineyard Quarter current project? Because there is Fonterra, there is ISB Northworth, it will be some other commercial buildings there, so you have plenty of people there spending money during the day. But then you have a hotel, Gordon Mola Viaduct Center, you have entertainment, you have, so it seems to be that there is a good equation there at the moment. How your equation is different of that?
Yeah, but when you think of it, if this project is for the next 20 odd years, we don't know what's going to happen in 20 odd years. In the next 20 odd years, the population might double. So where are you going to put more buildings? Where are these buildings going to come from? So my project, what it's doing is planning 10, 20 years ahead. Because, for example, if someone says, I'm going to build right out into the waterfront right now, someone would say, it's a stupid idea. But if you do it in 50 years time...
you'll be the first one.
You will be the first one, but the public might say, that's quite silly. 50 or 100 years ago, if someone said, I'm going to put Victorina over there, they would have said, you're stupid. Why are you doing that? But if you do it now, it's going to be the same thing. But in 100 years or time, 50 years or time, this whole thing is going to be developed. That's why the ports constantly keep wanting to grow.
Maybe Bruno can take over.
Bruno. Now I see where Juan is coming from.
Yeah.
But I think that it's potential part of this exercise is to speculate scenarios, and I think that that might be a feasible, achievable scenario. I will go more into the landscape architecture issues. Your presentation was great, and I think that you were very confident in what you were talking, and all the strategies that you put forward seem very well researched and somehow experimented. First thing about one of your precedents, the one with a very strange name from Korea. Yeah. Do you know how that project works, or how it was built up?
Well, there's a lot of engineering that's actually gone into it, and I haven't actually fully looked into the engineering aspect of it.
Yeah, you should, because that is as an idea what they did, to remove the motorway and daylight the river, and the impact of that in terms of economy, real estate, that's extreme. In terms of sustainability, that is not one of the strongest examples, because actually that water is pumped all the way through the river. The water, the storm water that was still is very polluted. It just goes underneath what they actually exposed. So the water that is circulating in the top is pumped in and out throughout that 13 kilometers. So just be careful in the future with your precedent. Just dig a little bit more into the nuts and bolts of each one, just to make sure that you're not conveying wrong ideas. But I totally understand what's the point of you bringing that precedent into your work. I think that overall the master plan that you are putting forward, it's quite interesting, it's quite revolutionary, it's quite bold. So I think that sounds all very, very appealing. I would probably give you more feedback in terms of what you need to do next. There was lots of things that I don't know if we have thought them through, but one of them would be how all of this creates a fully functional system, because at the moment it seems very segregated. You know, like we're gonna have this here, this there, this there, this there. And I was more interested of how this is gonna work as a fully functional, sustainable system. Because you have the daylighting of streams, you have wetlands, and then you have the edge condition from fresh water to salty water. You know, like all of those will be microsystems all happening there, and I was very interested to know, how big is the catchment, how much water are we talking about, how can your system cope with that before releasing it to the sea. So all that kind of stuff, I think that will be the big chunk of your work for the upcoming months, like really to explain that this can actually function. It looks great on a picture, but also it has the technical aspect that could really sustain the project.
I understand.
So that will be my only thing.
It's definitely the best picture of the morning.
Yeah, the graphics look very convincing.
Yeah.
That's really
It's
nice.
like, you can see it. Actually, there is another project in the Masters of Architecture here in Unitec, which is proposing to do the Olympic Village for the Olympic Games in Auckland over Grafton, which is not just that far away from there, from Europe.
No, it's not.
So, and proposes to leave the galley running and build a whole village above the galley. Which will be a much better location for buildings. So if you combine, an idea like that with your crazy and amazing idea of separating the harbor, those they are kind of, I don't know, more viable or credible.
Other question for you. I reckon that you're not going to be detailing all that different sections in the future. So which one are you more inclined to study more in detail from all that four?
You mean all four?
Yeah.
Probably this final section is what I'm quite interested in.
Yeah, I think it would be good that you look at that and start grounding your ideas. And because there's all the other issues of how all the adjacent infrastructure will fit into what you're trying to plan. I think it's a matter of you now going to the detail scale, coming back again to the more wider scale and see how this is going to all work. I think there's that testing, the testing aspect is missing.
7 stories.
Even to understand the scales.
It's a bold move. Just don't tell anyone that there are buildings. It's something else.
So if you weren't putting in buildings, what would it be? What do you reckon?
I don't know. Beautiful?
Park. Beautiful park.
Yeah.
Well, isn't one of Auckland Council's plans is to, encourage more families to live in vicinity? So doesn't that work towards that goal? Putting apartment buildings.
But those type of operations, they don't encourage families. They encourage
the rich people.
The rich people to occupy the waterfront, and then it's like, okay, this is rich land from here to here, and okay, nice families. You go and live in Hobsonville, and so
we've seen that happen with One Man Plaza You know, you've got rich people living there,
It's gonna be
and they don't want anyone in the plaza, they don't want people making noise, and so that whole kind of urban operation dies.
So where would be a good location to put that idea?
Up
In the
the galley, in Grafton Galley, you can build. Yeah, you just need to find the project in Unitec. He's one of the students of the Master of Architecture. He's was hanging somewhere here. You know, a whole Olympic village covering the whole Grafton Galley. What a great place to put it. No, it's an amazing project. It's an amazing project, and because the geographic kind of thing, it just makes so much sense. And then you join east and west across, and you pile up the people there with spectacular views as well, and over the red fence and over the.
So would it matter if this plan, just kind of, you know, speculative, if that was a park, would that
change.
Yeah.
would that change?
Yeah.
Would that change the intent of your ideas or your
Not
design?
really, no, because when I introduced the Chimichang River, the concept was to daylight and sort of kind of, obviously I can't cut a massive strip because, you know, there's key arterial roads going through and whatnot. So I looked at areas where, you know, there is potential for development, such as the treatment train and whatnot. But the whole...
So the park at there's a park at the confluence of these two things, is there?
Yeah, I mean, that could very well be a possibility.
Exactly. I think the celebration of the stream is
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
Whatever you're going to have there at the end does not affect the idea of celebrating the stream
exactly.
before.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, get rid of the building.
Okay, so
Then just
anyone
live somewhere
else?
else.
Shane, more comments on your colleague?
Resilience.
It's all good.
He already zoned out long ago.
Yeah. 20 minutes ago. He's gone. He's gone to